us about how you got started. What was the problem you were solving? What didn't work? What can we learn from that? Welcome to Guest Space. Okay, hi everyone. I want to welcome Hilary Fenet here to the first episode of Guest Space. Hilary and I have worked together in the fall to launch her new brand, Halo. Hilary, welcome. I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hi, Matt. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here. Great to see you and have a little chat here. My name's Hilary. I'm the founder of a company called Halo. We're a hotel booking platform for athletes and their supporters and fans. So we launched actually on a project that I collaborated on with Matt the end of October. And our first event organizer that we worked with was Vipa at Javelina, which is pretty epic. An epic first experience.
Absolutely. And so I was excited to talk to you on this platform because I've written about events and what brands can do to capture a lot of the, this festival atmosphere and the community gathering that has really ratcheted up around, big races the last several years. And I think you're just so uniquely positioned to one, capture that, but also have your kind of finger on the pulse of it. So I just wanted to chat about your story and then hopefully get into what you see ahead and what you hear coming from brands and races. If we can start out though, let's back up because you have the entrepreneurial angle into all of this, which I am also very excited about. In venturing to start your own business. You have a finance background, correct? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So I have, for context, no background in any kind of brand, events, hospitality, none whatsoever. I started this company off of kind of just a need from a consumer point of view, based off of my own experiences traveling, and then also more specifically traveling for trail races. My background is actually the opposite of that. I was on Wall Street for a very long time, working at a hedge fund called Citadel, and then a little bit more recently, a spin out of that called a hedge fund called Alpha Miner, where I ran a strategy investing mostly in consumer and tech companies. So that's kind of my background in kind of how I see the world, which is maybe a little bit different than a lot of other entrepreneurs sometimes. But yeah, so that's kind of a quick rundown on me. But I started Halo really off of the back of some of my experiences with, again, mentioned traveling for some of these trail races. And I can use one example in particular. I was going to a trail race in Italy, and I booked a hotel in the wrong town because the trail race website, I'd never been to the town before. I had no idea of the area. As you know, a lot of these trail maps are got booking.com up on one screen and the trail website up on the other, and you're trying to figure out, okay, where am I staying? What's going on?
Yeah.
So there's kind of that booking kind of piece of just the beta. And then when I got there was, I trained for 4 months and was so excited about this experience. And the race a lot of times is maybe 10% of the actual time that you traveled to kind of be a part of these races. And I thought it was such a missed opportunity to connect with other athletes. The brands would have kind of tents set up. A little bit of a missed engagement there because you walk by and you kind of think cool, and that's sometimes a little bit it. And then that was kind of the impetus for a lot of kind of what we're doing. So.
I love that because I mean, I'm a lot similar in a lot of ways. I mean, you came from finance and then made this seemingly illogical leap just into an area where you just were more really passionate about, right? And that got you really excited. I mean, I did the same thing coming from biotech into being a photographer and running, and that just also just made no sense other than me just doing something I was really excited about. So I think we really connect on that level, and that's I think really inspiring to a lot of people to hear. But your pain point is super valid that you kind of discovered through your own experience. How did you begin to dive into that world? I know you started the company how many years ago, and then it took a while to get to the point where you're really having this launch event, right?
Yeah, for sure. So I started the first iteration of this company to launch in March of 2020. So if you remember March of 2020 what was going on. Not a great time for a travel company. If you want to talk about the entrepreneurial journey, that was interesting. And the first iteration of this company was actually not necessarily addressing my pain points around traveling for races. It was my pain points traveling as a female traveler.
Got it.
So that was kind of that was like V1 of it. Because as I mentioned, I've been doing this for five years. Again, took a hiatus, went back into finance during COVID for obvious reasons, but such as paying rent. While nobody was traveling,
like many of us.
Minor detail. But yeah, that was kind of the beginning of the journey. And I think, the entrepreneurial kind of path is not like a straight line. It's very much like you start out with this thing. And then, I honestly was using trail running and running in general as a parallel for my entrepreneurial journey. Because I think the application and the parallels between being an entrepreneur and being like doing longer distances and running in general, I just personally learned so much from what I learned from trail running, and I apply that to business. And I would say I love to surf as well. I think there's a lot you can learn from these different these different disciplines that are directly inspirational and just bleed right over into trying to start a business, right? Like if you think starting a business is like a marathon, you've got something coming your way. It's like, it's more like a 250-mile, you know what I mean? Like everything that can go wrong will go wrong. Most of it's mental. You need a good team, right? That's a big part of it. So so a lot of it was just kind of centered around that journey, and that kind of piece was like, it started out in the travel space around a kind of demographic that has unique needs. And then as things progress and as I was kind of trying things, just doing reps, right? Because that's also a big
testing.
part of it. You do a rep and you kind of learn something from it, and you kind of iterate, and you kind of shift. You find the need, right? So I think for my journey, we were starting to try and target female travelers through consumer-focused brands, because that's the kind of easiest way to get in front of those niche demographics. Because now for travel and for booking, and let me know if this is getting too tangential.
No, go for it.
Booking.com and Airbnb and Expedia are kind of boiling an ocean. They have something for everybody, but it's like for these niche groups, like it's kind of, you have to do all of your own work, right? And so what was interesting to me is you have these brands that have these targeted audience, and they're talking about a specific lifestyle. And a lot of times these brands are like talking about travel and doing recommendations for travel, but there's no action item. There's no way to book. There's no way to be a part of it. There's no kind of community to join. It's like they're talking about it because they want you to then associate it when you go to do your travel and maybe buy their product, right? Great example. Solomon spent $7 million on a 30 clip ad for the Super Bowl last year. Get Back to Earth. Right. I think that was it. So it was like this beautiful clip of somebody running, and, they're like outside, they're like getting out of the side. Resonated with me because I live in New York City. So yes, get outside. I always love doing that. Right. But then, what's the CTA there? Like, what's the, it's like buy your product when you're going outside. Like, that's cool. I mean, I like it, but we're trying to really thread the dots. So that's kind of where I got in the first iteration of the business. Where we've kind of gone and where we've gotten a lot of traction since we've launched is not as much with brands being our kind of first clients. It's been, we've gotten a lot of traction with these event organizers. And I think, to your point, people travel for these events. They're there for 4 days or 3 days or however much time, and the event is a smaller part of that. So the big thing that we're trying to solve for, and the thing that I think the event organizers have really appreciated, is that we're kind of just expanding their experience for their guests coming into town and making it more of a holistic, community focused kind of experience.
Okay, great. And then that probably has benefits to them, right? In just the satisfaction that anyone running that race has. Maybe they have more retention and people come back in future years. All of those things really trickle down to benefit the race as one stakeholder for you.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've done a lot of surveys and kind of post surveys, and the numbers are really clear. It's like kind of it's not a waffling thing. It's like it really makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
We also have community managers on site to kind of like improve those experiences even more. I'll share that my mom was a community manager last weekend at Rocky Raccoon, and she got a higher NPS than anyone else. So she's now the chief community manager. And by the way, she's this like very proper British lady. Like she has no trail racing has not been on her radar, but like, oh my God, I could not get her off. She's like, and then she's like, you wouldn't believe, like, it's just to her, especially to somebody that's like not in the trail community, like the 100-mile stuff is just, it's so inspiring, right? Like,
yes. And we all know that like you're around it for a bit and then you get the bug and you are just so excited by it that as an absolute newbie, the enthusiasm is through the roof, right? And it sounds like she caught that and it was contagious. So she did a great job.
Well, she's 72. She's like, and then some young guy just asked me if I was racing. Like, I'm like, Mom, there are people out there that are in their 60s and 70s racing. Like, you could do it. She's like, yeah,
yeah, absolutely. That's great. And so we started to work together around Javelina in the fall. That the first Air Viper race that you worked with them, and we worked together on messaging, and that was really successful. Like you were on the ground there, I didn't end up being on the ground. Tell us how that went. Like maybe describe what Halo's activation looked like, and then we can talk about the feedback that you had, which was awesome.
Yeah. So I think on the messaging front, kind of something that you would kind of helped us elaborate was just this notion of runners think differently, right? Runners see the world in a different way, especially ultra runners. They're like the extra crazy ones. And so I think part of the messaging was just like, you see the world in a different way, and hotels are usually like that. Hotel experience is usually crafted for like a corporate traveler, like, like the general masses. And so, so we were just trying to communicate to our new audience that like we're trying to think about the world and make it easy, like make your life easier for this race, and also have it be an extension of something as iconic as a Javelina race. So part of that is built into our booking flow and the booking experience, and just making that much more seamless and easier. And then the other pieces on property, we did like a breakfast area takeover. So we had like designated spots for athletes to all come together and have breakfast. We had a cantina, like an, oh shit, I forgot my cantina.
So there were two hotels, right? Then that you worked with the race to kind of curate as like the official hotels, right?
Yeah.
And so you did this at both of the hotels, correct?
We did iterations at both. We had a higher price point hotel for people that wanted a bit of a nicer stay, and then we had kind of a more like lower price hotel. We negotiated pretty significant discounts for both of those hotels, so kind of off market rates. And then we did the breakfast areas at both. We only did the cantina at one of them. Okay. We had an on-site WhatsApp group, and then at check-in, when you kind of came in, we worked with Goo and the feed, and oh no, I'm forgetting somebody. Do you remember? Sorry, we have so many of these going on right now. I
understand. It'll come up. Yeah. So you incorporated the brands then into like part of the process and some of the work that you did.
Yeah. So we worked with the brands to kind of enhance the athlete's experience when they check in. So they get kind of a swag bag. One of my favorite feedback quotes whenever kind of after everything was said and done was, I felt like I was a VIP or like an elite athlete, even though I'm like, a teacher or something like that. So that made me feel really good. And then we also did shuttles as well. And I'm pretty sure race day breakfast. So 4 a.m. there's coffee, there's bagels, just all those like little pain points that you might have.
Yeah. And it's great because you I mean, if you run a race, usually you're up very early and oftentimes breakfast hasn't started yet. And then there's nothing more frustrating than not being able to have your coffee before you start a race.
Come on. It's like the
Yeah.
one
But again,
thing.
like how runners see a hotel, right? Those are some of the things that you're looking for and thinking about that the business traveler isn't necessarily, and the hotel really isn't necessarily.
Yeah. No,
So tell me more about that feedback. I think you're holding back a bit because the feedback you got on the post runner survey was really, really good. What were the percentages of people that said they would stay again and things like that?
yeah, I mean, yeah, those were really encouraging.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like 100%. We're like, yes, we return. Yes. I think we got a net promoter score of 79. Which again, my mom got 100, so she really set the bar on that one last weekend. I'm like, geez, that's like really new industry standard. She brought king cake over from Louisiana, to be fair, so I feel like she cheated, but
yeah.
But yeah,
that's
so
great.
people were very enthusiastic. People, at the very least, I think everybody appreciates just like one less thing to think about is just like the pre-selected locations that are close to the race and are high quality. The discount's kind of a no-brainer. Like, do you want a better price than you can get on any other website? Yes. And then all the additional ones are just kind of, it's like taking something from like a 4 or 5 star experience to like a 6-star experience that's like really tailored to you. And I think another theme that like, as we do more of these, we'll get kind of more creative with, but like people want community. Like I'm in New York City. It's like the nexus of the run clubs. It's like every weekend there's another run club popping up. But I think like it's not just here. I think it's everywhere. People want community and they want to connect around the things that they love, and they want to connect around wellness stuff. And I think just being able to connect on the race course is cool, but like if you're staying somewhere for like 3 or 4 days, like there's so many more natural points for connection that can lead to really meaningful friendships, or it's just like like some of my closest friends now are people that I've met through kind of like trail running, like races, or it's just you meet like-minded people, getting them together. I think there's a real kind of piece of magic there that could be through really good tech and having people like in the physical space together, supercharged to some extent.
Yeah. And so if you're a runner, you book through Halo and you're automatically just plugged right in to the race, to the events happening around the race. You're in the chat group where people are already talking about all of these. You don't have to curate all of this on your own on the side. You're just plugged right into your interest group or your tribe, like immediately, right?
Yeah.
That there's a lot of value in that for everyone involved. So Javelina went over really, really well. And you've had a lot of success since. Can you update even me, because I don't know that I know all of that since Javelina, everything that's come about since then?
Yeah. So it's been busy. I think that I think from what I've seen so far, you have like kind of an adoption curve. Like 2.5% are people in that first, like they will say yes to something new. The curve goes very steeply after that. Once you have like an example of what something looks like, because I've been trying to get our first client for a while, and it was like a harder sell than I thought it would have been. But that being said, like we were originally supposed to be working with Tracksmith, but then the people we were working with went to different brands. So you have to have the right person in a right spot that is open to doing something new. And a lot of people are like, they're like, I don't know, it's playing it safe. It seems like extra work. There's a million reasons to kind of do what's always been done before versus doing something innovative.
Totally. We say it all the time. Like that's just a theme. Yeah.
Of course. Yeah. And it's fine. I mean, look, you don't want to get fired. You don't want to,
totally.
So, and I, with Airvipa, like one of my advisors was like, I'm not surprised they're the first ones to say yes, right? They're pretty innovative. Like Jamil's awesome. Like, the whole team they're awesome. And so, yeah, so we kind of kicked off with them at the beginning or at the end of October. And since then, we've opened a bunch of other races with them. So we're doing Black Canyons, Cocodona, we're doing Javelina next year. We've started working with a couple of other race organizers in Texas, in California, in Colorado, in New York. We're launching all through referrals, which is really encouraging to me because like we haven't done any marketing. We haven't done any kind of like paid advertising or anything like that. It's all been through organic word of mouth, which to me is like the traction that I want to see. We've been moving now into different verticals. So race organizers in trail running have started recommending us to race organizers in mountain cycling. We're moving into track and field.
Great.
We're moving into ski snow sports. And we are starting to kind of like, again, my original vision for this booking platform was to have the brands be kind of the ones doing it because they can really do cool stuff on the community front and the experiential front. And we're starting to, like, we have our first client hopefully going live in the next 2 months for that. So that'll be a fun announcement because I think they can just take it to a whole nother level. And instead of us being community managers and curating experiences, like they get to do that and make it theirs. Right. Yeah. So I know we're not working on this one. So this is not like I'm not announcing anything. I'm just like painting a picture for you because I know you love this brand. But like think if Satisfy had a hotel experience at Western States where they have like couple of their athletes being the community managers. They have pre-race panel discussions, like a welcome party, shakeout runs, maybe some of their new merch that you can demo. I don't know. Would you get excited about that?
I mean, if you're a big fan of whatever brand, Bandit, you name it, you can go to an event and experience that event through their lens, and just have a holistic view on where to eat, how to spend your time, where else to go in your free time, all of these things through that lens around that weekend. That's really powerful.
And like hang out with some of their athletes that aren't racing that weekend, right? Like Brooks, Scott Jurek, like who doesn't want to, he's like out there for Western States, like, it'd be fun to grab a beer.
That's fantastic. It's fantastic.
You Scott Jurek story, by the way.
No, go ahead.
John. So our COO for background he's like a tennis guy. He played tennis in college. Trail is like a new thing for him.
Yes.
He was wandering around TRE and he loves Brooks, like the shoes. And he ran the marathon he's into running, but again, like trail is very specific. So he wanders in, he starts like chatting with this Brooks guy that has no idea. He's like, Halo, like we're starting to work with athletes. So he'd be like athlete hotel. And the guy's like, well, I could do my own hotel. He's like, yeah. And then people start walking up and like shaking his hand and be like, oh, it's so nice to meet you. And John's like, oh shit.
That's great.
Great.
That's great.
I don't think we'll be working with him anytime soon.
Oh, that's so funny. But I mean, you never know. Learning curve for John, right? Because he built a lot of this the back end of this for you, right?
Yes, him and we have an engineering team of about 8 people.
Yeah. And so he's done so much behind the scenes, but isn't as integrated in the community, right? And so he's kind of becoming a fan through all this, like we talked about before, isn't he?
I mean, after Javelina, he was like, I want to run 100 miles next year. I was like, sure.
I mean, if you can convert a tennis player,
go for it.
A tennis player who's not a runner, right? That is amazing.
He ran the New York Marathon, so he's like he does run. Like that is now like more of his sport. He's just like he just doesn't know the players and the.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. That's great. So it's really starting to take off, and I think the expansion into different verticals is wild. What are the ramifications of that for like the company or from like the business? Are you thinking about scaling, or how are you approaching this growth curve and where you're at along it?
I mean, I think we potentially got a really large client last week on the international marathon majors front. And and somebody was like, can the platform handle that? And I think it's like kind of one of those things where you're like, screw it. Like, yes, we can actually, like, we're going to figure it out. So we're doing a million different things at once.
Great.
And I think our main priorities, and especially my main priority, is working with really great partners that are really excited. Like, whatever the vertical, I want to work with people that are really excited to like enhance the experience and want to do cool stuff. Like that's I think at the beginning of the year, I think we had like we kind of shared some quotes that we really want to prioritize as like kind of our mantras for this year. And one of them is, it's like an old Chinese proverb, like, is it the destination or the journey? And there's like a little panda in the cartoon. It's like, no, it's the company, right? Like you want to make sure you're doing cool stuff with the right people. So whatever the vertical is, skiing, mountain biking, running, like we want to work with people that are awesome and like are excited to do kind of innovative.
As excited as you are. Yeah, that's exactly right.
We need somebody to match the enthusiasm.
So would you say you're starting to see like sort of two verticals appear, like the races that want maybe to lean on Halo to create the experience, and then the brands where you kind of do the back end work for them, but they're kind of creating the experience and doing that on the groundwork, maybe, if you want to call it, themselves.
Yes. That's exactly it. There is a third vertical as well where athletes are owning that experience.
Got it.
Athletes with a big enough fan base. So we're going to do something with a French snowboarding athlete that's going to create their own experience around it. So there's a couple of different verticals, but it's like the same, like, again, we're a tech platform, and what we're really trying to do right now is just through really sophisticated, like a lot of brands can't do this because they could. Well, they can on the booking side. They can't do a lot of this stuff. But like a lot of times they would even shy away from doing like a hotel block and then curating that. Is like, it's a ton of work. Yeah. And so what we're doing is just, we're figuring out all the different moving pieces and we're automating it through really good tech. So you can kind of like, you take a lot of the big lift off of people's shoulders and they can just really focus on creating a really cool experience. And, and I think we're really locking it down on the event side where our client is the event organizers. And then once we've automated a lot of the stuff that we're doing to make the event special, we're kind of going to give that playbook to brands so they can just kind of run with it. And same thing for athletes. Athletes will need more hand-holding, but
sure. Or maybe they're working sort of tangentially with sponsors or, with brands, right? There might be some overlap there, but.
Well, so that piece gets me excited too. I don't know if we've talked about this too much on the athlete side, but I think I like disruptive models. I like Airbnb or Uber. Like Airbnb, anyone that owns a home can tap into the hospitality industry and start generating their own money. And they can become a hotel. They almost like they can create their own hotel experience with their house or their apartment or whatever. Uber, if you own a car, again, like you can be a driver and tap into that market. With this, what's cool is like for an athlete, if they want to create, if they're already doing community stuff and they want to create their own race experience, there's also a way for them to flip the tables around and start charging brands to show up at their own experience.
Interesting.
Right. So I like those models because I think especially in this industry in particular, I think something that I find I think some of the athletes could get paid more. It doesn't always feasibly work out because maybe they're not winning everything, but they have a huge community. So maybe there's another way for them to kind of tap into another revenue stream. That's not just the typical solutions that exist right now. And also really beneficial to so many people.
Yes. I've written about that a lot lately, and there's been a lot of conversation just about athletes having a bit more autonomy over their career and their finances instead of being so dependent on the sponsorship model. And you see that, social media is helping to move that in that direction, but this is another outlet in hospitality that, like you mentioned, we just really haven't seen before.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that move from digital to in real life, which I think people are looking for sure.
People are very excited about. Yeah. Hence all the festival style atmosphere at, New York and all that, Chicago, all the marathons. It's crazy anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I
what
mean, New
is
York is
the,
like the nexus of like pop-up shops in Soho.
yes,
So
yes.
yeah, so many pop-up shops.
I saw a calendar that was put together around all of the different, pop-ups and events and things around the marathon this past year. And it was wild. It was enormous, the
Yeah.
amount of things going on. So it's hard to even keep track, let alone like do all the work to kind of curate the experience you want to have for yourself. And this is really great. What's, you mentioned like learning this playbook sort of what's working for you and helping to extend that to brands. So they can then curate their own community experience. What I know you're still kind of probably working and learning through that. What is that starting to look like? What are some of the things you see that are working or not working or that get people excited and does anything come to mind?
Yeah, for sure. I think for athletes in particular, like especially for running, when you're coming to a new place, there's so much that you're thinking about, right? Like there's a lot on your mind. And I think one of the things that we're trying to templatize is just removing some pain points. So it's just kind of like taking care of logistics, like some of those logistics and taking them off the table.
Okay.
I think, and again, like if we had to paint a cool graphic, like think of like the hierarchy of needs of like a runner or a racer. Right. And you're like a racer and you have the hierarchy of needs of like their crew and their supporters and everything like that. So the baseline, like we're trying to like through the booking platform, just take care of like the baseline, like those basic needs. And then every kind of level on top of that is like kind of just moving up the line of like the value and kind of the like 6 or 7 star experience to this kind of whole thing. So I think the community manager, who the community manager is, can be a really big part of it. We're doing like the like people really like also the VIP like athlete swag bag at check-in, depending on which brands we're working on. We did like Hoka at Bandera and Scratch, we're trying to like figure out like what people really like. Is it the Scratch? I'm actually eating some of these now. Scratch, the lemon drops, or is it the T-shirt? Like what do people really get excited about? The coffee and the early morning breakfast, like that piece, just having that piece kind of taken care of. And then the kind of community aspect, I think, is like kind of at the top of the pyramid of things that people really love, like just having the WhatsApp group, having some kind of area for everybody to gather. Those are kind of the basic things. We're building off a lot of things on top of that, but those are kind of the main ones so far.
Yeah. I got a question from Justin, who's one of my subscribers, that asked about the nonprofit or the charity angle. And is that something that's come up so far in this journey?
Yeah. I mean, it's live. I think that's another kind of thing that's really exciting. Can I do a screen share on this? No, probably not. That would be,
that's a good question.
No, so it's already, so that piece is fun. Similar to like the models that I like disruptive models where, athletes can kind of tap into this. You do the same thing for charities, right? So, and the way we work with charities is kind of as a little sidecar onto the either event organizers or the brand partners. And when people book, they get a portion of the bookings, like the charities get a portion of the bookings. Great. And it's just a great way, again, to kind of democratize, like that money is otherwise going to booking.com or Expedia or Airbnb. So why not open that market up?
Absolutely.
Like this whole other, the conservation. So for Black Canyons, we're giving, the charity that we're working with is the Black Canyon Trail Coalition. So they're the ones that are responsible for maintaining those trails. But like, man, think of this at scale, right? Like think of this on like a much larger level. Like this is a 1,000-person race, but these numbers can get much bigger, and it could potentially have a lot of impact for conservation. And, you think about this like Patagonia, one of those. They've got
right. Or whatever, like the charity or the causes, right? I mean, you can really get people to rally behind it, book through you, have your experience, and have just the virtue of taking their trip at all be giving back to that cause.
Doing something, right?
Yeah.
Like doing some kind of like good with it.
That's amazing. Yeah, no, that's amazing that it's just so applicable. Like the model is very applicable for a lot of different outlets. And that's incredible. Where's all this headed with races and this atmosphere and everyone traveling to them all the time and just the buzz seemingly getting like bigger and bigger and bigger? Do you have any, there's no wrong answer. Do you have any premonitions on trends you see?
I'm excited to see when we do launch with our first brand part. Well, all right. Well, no, I think I'm super excited to, similar to what we were talking about with Airbnb, where you have like individuals being able to create their own experience. Like I'm so excited to see when we can get this to more people, like what they come up with, because they're going to come up with some really fun stuff. And right now we're trying to prompt the brands. So, this will probably, so like one nutrition partner will probably have a flip cup tournament with their
electrolyte mix or something like that, mix,
right? At Cocodona.
That's great.
Like fun stuff like that. Cause you can do like a welcome party. You can do like a round robin flip cup tournament with, XYZ.
Yes.
So there's
spectators,
all these, like, cool
crew, everyone. Yeah.
Yes. And we can have beer there too, but yeah, it's just like, there's going to be so much. I hope that what we're doing, like we're trying to get creative with stuff and do fun stuff just because I already naturally love that. And so it's John and like, I think the team's open, but I think we're trying to like give people ideas, like, and then give them the tool to do this themselves. Cause I'm excited to see, again, going back to these different niches, like, I don't know, Hoka did a drag show at Javelina, but like, there's just like so many different directions these brands can go. I hope that we make it easy for them to do cool stuff. And I hope, and because I know the reception's there, especially for the brands, like from all the surveys we've done, when we ask the question, if a shoe or a sports brand organized a hotel experience at your next race, would you stay there? It's not like a 60% yes. It's like a 97% yes. Like people are 97. Looking for this. Like we as in Halo just need to make it easy for people to share it, to have people book. We need to give them the incentive to do that with the data and analytics. And like, there's all these like moving pieces that we're building and have built. It's more or less, again, it's looking pretty good for V1. I'm happy with it.
Absolutely.
But yeah, as we make it easier, I think I'm excited to see what people cook up.
Yeah, you're sort of like starting the flywheel by, beginning to curate these things yourselves. But in the long term, it's really kind of stepping away and just having created the infrastructure and organizing what otherwise was kind of a messy not even a template, just a messy space for how to do this, how to activate this, and for the runner to even move through all of that. It all was just messy, and by organizing it and curating it a bit, you can in the long term maybe just step away and see what happens as the flywheel gets started. And that, like we said, has so many applications.
Yeah, and I think longer term, the vision is like I want for these large organizations, these big brands, to sell experiences instead of just things. Like if you can economically incentivize them to do that and to put resources behind it, and I won't go too much down to that because that's a little bit of a down the road, but like get people together. Like I hope that's where this goes, because I think instead of like everybody being behind a screen and like talking to people behind screens and being on their screen all the time, if we can use technology to get people together around stuff that they love instead of like bickering about stuff that they hate, I think that's great. I think it's a win.
Right. Nobody's a keyboard warrior. Nobody's a keyboard warrior in person, are they?
Yeah. No. And again, like things like running, I think. So predictions, like getting more people together. I think having people hopefully travel, like be incentivized to like travel more for the things that they love. Cause I think there's a lot of like really amazing stuff that comes from going to a new place, having a new experience, kind of getting outside of your home. I think like that's another big trend. Like people already are traveling more. They're traveling a lot more for wellness experiences. I think,
and running is so cool, I think, because it unites people from like a lot of different walks, right? Because anyone can run. And so when you travel and plug into an experience where you have something in common like running, you look left and right and there's people that may be completely different from you. And that sort of mingling is just really valuable for our people's worldview. Like, right?
Yeah. And you won't find a nicer community than the trail. I mean, good Lord, like such great people. If you're running 100 miles, like chances are you're not going to be like, you've kind of worked out your demons a little bit. Maybe you haven't.
It's a pretty vulnerable thing to do, isn't it? And when you're really deep in it, you can't like be a jerk. Like everybody is just absolutely on hanging from a thread and you need all the help you can get.
Yeah. You spend a lot of time with yourself out in the wild. So
yeah. What's is there anything else you want to add? I feel like I've asked most of the questions I have, and like I feel we've gotten a pretty good view of what you're up to. I think it's amazing. I want everyone to hear about it.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for chatting with me about it. And I would almost kind of throw a question back to you. Like, what are some of your predictions for this year? Like, where you see community, brand engagement? What are some predictions for 2025?
I think all those things I think I see continue to grow. The need for all of us to get together and learn and get to know one another on human levels, I think is even greater because of the political climate. And so I think people will be looking for that. And I think these events have a lot more power than they maybe have even had in the past as a result of that. So I'm really excited about what you're doing. And I really lean into the point about people just getting away from screens and being out and about and living their life. And anything that promotes that is something I'm super bullish on going forward. Because I think there's just a lot of trends with social media, like just from like a mental health point of view, but also just like, I don't know, just from the destruction that we're just generally starting to see that cause, that will make it just a really big growth engine for people to be out and about in person. I think you'll start to see people lean more towards that direction, and you're like very, very well positioned to help them do that. And so I love what you're doing. Thank you for being on here with us. Where can everyone find you or find Halo?
Our Instagram, which we need to do some work on, is at poweredbyhalo.com. The last post we've done are at Javelina, and then we've been resharing some stuff that's been popping up with some of our partners. But we'll kind of put more resources into that at some point soon. But follow along at poweredbyhalo.
Okay. And then the website is poweredbyhalo.com.
Yeah, the website's poweredbyhalo.com. Sign up for our newsletter. We're going to start putting out more research on some of the findings that we're having.
Great.
From some of these events, just publishing stats and just kind of having more kind of thought pieces come out just around what's working, what's
great,
what's engaging people, what do they want more of.
Great.
So
great.
But yeah, look, I mean, again, I'll be at Black Canyons. Are you going to any of the? I'll see you at Western States. No?
I'm not going to be at Black Canyon. I don't think, unless something comes up super last minute. That's like this week. But no, I'll be at Western States. I'll be there around TrailCon and the whole week leading up to that.
Shoot, I should have talked to you like 2 days ago. We're doing two hotels at Black Canyons, and I should have had you come out and be a community manager at one of them.
Oh, that would have been really fun.
My mom took the slot, sadly. Sorry, but maybe one of the other ones.
Your mom is probably 1,000 times more engaging than I am, especially if she has a really cool British accent instead of my Midwest Ohio accent. So that in itself has a lot of value.
Yeah, we'll do it in another one. But thank you
Yeah.
so much for taking the time and
Yeah.
chatting. Thanks for all your help with, again,
Yeah.
all the stuff.
Great. Thank you, Hilary. Talk soon.